Cartoons, I just love them. I could talk about them all day long. And that's basically what I'm doing. You might notice I'm wearing the same shirt in a lot of these videos. I'm just knocking a lot of these videos out today because I enjoy talking about cartoons and I want you to enjoy them as well. Today, let's talk about Gumby Essentials. This is a DVD that you will see oftentimes popping up at places like Five Below. That seems to be a very common place to find these. You can find it easy online, and you see them occasionally popping up in bargain bin things at like Walmart, that kind of thing. Now, what is Gumby Essentials? Well, this is a DVD set that's been out for several years now, and this basically gives you a quick glimpse of Gumby during three different eras: the 1950s, the 1960s, and the 1980s. Now, why are there three different eras? Well, the show originally ran in the 1950s with the original show being shown on the Howdy Doody show. And the cartoons were distributed in that particular way, and they did pretty well. Then in the 1960s, you had a television show, and a lot of people remember that quite fondly. And then you had the 1980s, which is a revival, and that's where a lot of kids from like my particular era know Gumby. So when you're looking at these three different eras, they're actually very, very different. The original Gumby was very, very sweet and childlike. It was basically kind of like they were pretending that this is a children's toy that comes to life, and he's interacting with toys that are around him in the play shop. And a lot of times the stories were very innocent in the beginning. There was a childlike innocence to the stories, and it was almost as if a little 5-year-old or something had written this particular story that Gumby goes through. It was very cute in the beginning. Later on, it gets a little bit more surreal, but the stories also get a little kind of meatier. That's when you get to the 1960s, where you have Gumby and Pokey going on a lot of adventures. They would oftentimes meet somebody from history in a book. They might get into some sort of adventure because they go into the wrong kind of book, and they're dealing with technology from another civilization or something. And then in the 1980s, it was very much influenced by what was popular then, and it was rock music. So everybody was in a rock band. So that's when you have Pokey, Prickle, and Goo kind of jumping in and helping out Gumby. And you have the Blockheads, which became the regular enemies. So it became a little bit more formulaic in the 1980s, but also enjoyable in its own way. So this is an interesting little DVD to have where you get a glimpse of all of these eras. You have five hold on, 5 from the 50s, 6 from the 1960s, and 5 from the 1980s. In the 1950s, they were relatively short in most cases. They were basically like little short subjects. In the 1960s, they were little brief parts of animation episodes of regular TV, like 11-minute kind of cartoons. And then in the 1980s, the stories could go a little bit longer. So it makes sense that you get 6 from the 1960s because those would be shorter in some cases than you would have in those other two eras. Do I have a favorite era? I appreciate all three of them. I think the 1950s is kind of interesting. I like the childhood approach that they take there, but there's definitely a little bit more maturity to the stories in the 1960s. The 1980s, I enjoy the other characters, but it's a little bit too formulaic at that point. I think that's probably my least favorite, although I do enjoy all three eras for different reasons. Would I pick up this particular disc? Absolutely. There are other good features on here too. The very first inspirational film for Gumby, Gumbasia, which I've actually done a commentary on ArtSmart before, that's on here. You get to see Gumby on the Moon, which is his very first short for the Howdy Doody show. It's weird, it's very strange, but it's cute, it's good. I would definitely recommend looking at. You get the Gumby theme song from the 1960s, which is pretty catchy. A lot of kids know the 1980s version now, but not the 1960s. They also have some rare Gumby bumpers from the TV show and some character bios, which to me is basically just throwaway. But anyway, good special features for this. It's a cheap disc. You get quite a bit on it. And if you like Gumby, these are some of the cleaner versions of these films that I've seen. So I would definitely pick it up. It's worth it. Usually selling somewhere in about the $10 range, sometimes less. Go for it. So hopefully this makes you a little bit more art smart. Oh, let me show you pictures. God, I'm just going on and on. So here's the cover. Here is the interior. The disc is upside down, sorry. And here's the back. Anyway, definitely pick it up, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.